Welcome to It's All Geek to Me, a podcast where two friends experience popular nerdy franchises for the first time. My name is Leah, and this season my co-host Kelli and I will be traveling to a galaxy far, far away as Kelli experiences Star Wars for the very first time. And I'm the expert. Let's dive in.
And we're back for the final episode of the season.
Yes. Ugh, I can't believe we made it here.
This has been a record season for us, even though we've only had two.
But honestly, I don't know if this season has more episodes than season one. I think they're pretty equal.
It does. We have like 10 more episodes in this season.
You think?
I know. I'm the one who numbers them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But we are here with the final episode, although it doesn't feel like a final episode because the way the movie ended did not wrap up a lot of loose ends.
Yeah, I kind of think that this movie was supposed to not be a one-off. I think it was supposed to get another. It didn't.
It seems like it was going to be a trilogy.
Yeah, I think it was going to be a trilogy, but I also think the way that it ends up, like kind of being so open-ended, you can kind of just fill in the pieces yourself.
Yeah, true.
A little fanfic.
Oh, are you writing more fan fiction for us?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Can you send that to me when you're done?
Yeah, it's not like a sexy one, though. It's just, very informative.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I like a little bit of fan fiction history.
So I'll send it to you when I'm done. If anyone else wants it, email me
Thank goodness.
at leahwritesfanfic@yahoo.com.
Yahoo?
Yeah.
That's your domain that you're choosing?
That's like the big one, right?
Why don't you go with a nice Hotmail?
Hotmail was my second choice.
Well, do you want to give us a little recap on what happened in the last episode, or should I just dive in?
I can give a brief little recap. We met our hero, Han Solo. He gets separated from his love, Qi'ra. He goes on a little heist with Beckett and friends, and then he reunites with Qi'ra, and then now they are going on a mission to steal some coaxium.
Another heist, if you will.
Another heist. Lando's with them, L3 is with them, Chewie's with them, and Beckett's there too.
And it's all just a fun, happy time, and then they go get the coaxium and they live happily ever after.
And everybody lives.
So thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode.
I think this was our best episode yet, actually. We laughed, we cried.
People are sighing with relief.
Arms got ripped off.
Did an arm get ripped off?
Did you not pay attention to the arm ripping off?
I know Lando got his arm shot.
No, Chewie ripped off 2 arms, and then Han was like, wow, that was the uniform.
That doesn't, I thought you meant a main character. That does not count.
Oh, no, just like some guy. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't count.
There's no symbolism in that one.
Well, anyway, Kelli, get us started.
Well, we join the crew on the Millennium Falcon, and Chewie and Beckett are playing monster chess. And I have to say, I don't love that Chewie was bad at it, but maybe Woody was just too good at it. I'm sorry, I kept on calling him Woody in my notes, so I'm going to accidentally say Woody sometimes, but I do know his name is Beckett.
That's okay, but I actually like that Chewie was bad at it because it showed the origin story of how Chewie began playing monster chess.
Although, I feel like in episode, I don't remember which one it was, 9 maybe, they were saying he's been playing for over 200 years. But no, he's only been playing for like 30 years.
Well, they just made an assumption that he's been playing for over 200 years based on his age.
That's a good point. Well, anyway, even though it seems like a light moment, I did write down some stuff because I had a feeling that it was going to come back. And it does. Because Chewie loses and he's throwing his little tantrum. He's trying to like wipe the monsters off of the board. And Beckett's like, it's a hologram. You can't wipe them off. And then he starts trying to lecture Chewie while Han walks up. And he's like, you have to think a few moves ahead and anticipate your enemy's move. And there's a lesson to be learned here. And he looks at Han. And then Han immediately asks, where's Qi'ra? And at that point, I thought it was going to be a hint that Qi'ra is the one who's the enemy. Although, I mean, it was kind of right.
I do think this movie took a lot of twists and turns. There was a lot of like gotcha moments at the end of like, who's the bad guy?
So many.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. I did not guess every step. I had a feeling that Qi'ra was going to end up staying bad, but I didn't anticipate it to go in this fashion.
Yeah, good surprises.
So yeah, then Han goes to search for her. I'm guessing he was in Lando's room because there was just a whole closet full of capes.
Yeah, this is actually a moment that really bothered me because beforehand Beckett does say something like, people are predictable, and then it cuts to Qi'ra like trying on Lando's clothes. So it's like, oh, the woman loves to try on
Women
clothes.
love shopping.
Women love
capes.
shopping. Yeah, exactly. So kind of like an eye roll moment. I feel like this movie was trying to be PC while at the same time kind of failing at it.
Can I tell you my theory on that?
Yeah, Disney?
No. I I actually disagree with you because I thought that the people are predictable and then it cutting to her in his room was almost a hint that Beckett was like, of course she's like, because they were flirty in the beginning. And it's like, of course she's trying to hook up with this guy Lando. And that's why she's in his room, not because she's like, I love fashion.
Really? You think that he thought she was trying to hook up with Lando?
I think that they were flirty and he was like, people are predictable. Maybe they're all flirting somewhere.
No, I thought it was the clothes thing. There's another few eye roll moments that I had with this film, but I will get to them.
I do agree with you, but I am trying to make it seem a little bit deeper because I do hate that when it's like all women love clothes, they love shopping, and anytime there's a handsome man, they all swoon. And a lot of people in fantasy are really guilty of doing that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And if they don't love shopping, then they have 15 older brothers and that's how they learn to defend themselves.
My brother took me to the woods and he taught me how to hunt and kill.
And they're like, I don't wear makeup ever. And then they put on makeup and then all the guys swoon for them. And they're like, wow, you actually are a girl.
She took her glasses off and she became beautiful.
And she shook her hair down and she's like, don't get used to it. I like wearing my cargo pants.
Yeah.
We could just write a movie right now.
But anyway, so we do find Qi'ra in Lando's closet trying on all his capes, and the boy comes in and she swoons for him. She just falls right on the floor. That doesn't happen.
No, it does not happen. But they have a little innuendo because she's like, well, what happens next? And he's like, well, we can talk. And then he like gestures to the bed. Disney, I see what you're doing.
This is not a kid movie.
And then she asks, she's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What's going on with the Kessel Run? And I don't know why he just like dives into like, I want to tell you so much. It was kind of reminding me of like Anakin with Padme being like, it hurts to look at you.
Yeah.
Or whatever that whole thing was. Because he's like, I want to tell you so much.
I just think he's been trying to get a moment alone with her. Like when they're in their group, they're going to talk about the Kessel Run. They're going to talk about the mission. But now that they're alone, he's trying to be who they were, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, yo, we're not those people anymore.
Yeah.
But let's make out just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's sad and she's like, I can't tell you like all that's happened to me because you won't look at me the same. And he's like, nothing will change the way I look at you. And then they start making out heavily.
Yeah, that's the biggest makeout we've gotten.
It was not just a kiss. That was like we've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
We took a little break, but now we're back. In it. It wasn't like a romantic kiss. It was like a sexy kiss.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Beckett comes in. He's like, oh, am I interrupting something? Because we actually have stuff to do. And then he is with Han in another section of the ship and he's telling him that it's a mistake. And Han is like, well, I think I know her a little bit better than you do. And Beckett is like, well, I don't think you know her well enough.
Yeah.
Because Beckett is suspicious. And honestly, same.
And I liked this interaction because Han is so convinced that he knows her, but they were so young. Actually, somebody told me that they were 16 at the beginning of the film.
Oh, wow.
So they're like 19 now. But that's such a formative
geez.
time in your life. And especially if she's had to do some seedy things to kind of get out of her situation or get herself in a better situation. Beckett is sort of right here. She's not exactly the person that Han knew back on Corellia.
Seriously. And even at 19, she's not going to be the same person she is at 25.
Yeah.
And then at 25, she's not going to be the same person she is at 30.
If she makes it there.
If she makes it
Things
there.
aren't looking great for her, but
I don't know. I was like wondering at the end if she becomes somebody that I recognize as an evil
No.
character. Okay.
no, we never see her again. But we might.
Oh, yeah. Or she's dead. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, Beckett says that, you know, they make a good crew, him, Han, Chewie, but Qi'ra is not a part of that. And he gives him a warning. He says the only way to live is to assume that everyone will betray you.
Yeah. Beckett giving all these little nuggets of wisdom.
Pessimistic wisdom.
It does come back to bite him in the butt later, though.
Yeah, it's true. Although it was a smart piece of advice.
Yeah.
And then we also see Lando and L3 piloting the ship. They're doing their business. There's a little joke about equal rights for droids. I'm sure you loved that part.
Yeah, well, because Lando's like, do you need anything? And she's like, equal rights. And he's like, ugh, not this again. Which the person fighting for equal rights, everyone's sort of just like scoffing at them.
I feel like that's such a... When was this movie made? Was it kind of recent?
Oh, yeah, super recent.
I feel like it was such an early 2000s thing to be like, ugh, the vegan activist person who wants everybody to live freely and happily. Like eye roll in Disney and Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
You remember Sam from Danny Phantom? Like she literally had good causes in mind and everyone was always like, ugh.
I mean, this came out in 2018. 19, though.
Okay, so Disney is behind on the times.
But we knew that.
Yeah. So then Lando leaves the cockpit because ship things. I don't write down the details about the ship things because they're just like, oh, we got to do the thruster activate.
Yeah.
Doop-a-doop-a-doo. You know what I mean?
Doop-a-doop-a-doo.
The doop-a-doop-a-doo. I can't even think of fake words. And then Qi'ra comes in and she's like, oh, like, what's that sound? Because there's all these storms outside. And L3 kind of explains it. And she's like, so what are you going to do? Because that brand on your wrist tells me that you're already committed. But Han's heart rate tells me that he's in love with you. And she does, at this point, I understand that she is 19 because she's like, he's totally not in love with me.
Which is so stupid because yes, he is. Like, and you know that he's in love with you. Why is that a surprise?
Yeah, you guys used to be together.
Yeah. I hated that line so much.
That was so embarrassing.
She should have been like, he was, but he's not anymore. Like, he used to be, but he's not anymore. I think would have made more sense.
That would have made a lot more sense. I definitely didn't. That was the stupidest line of the movie.
I agree.
Like, who, me? I'm just a silly little nerd, and he's a jock. I have a big imagination today. I'm sorry in advance.
Yeah, no, the way that she said it, though, I was like, why is this a line?
And then L3 comes out with something. I would have been shocked if you hadn't said this.
I know. I'm so sorry I ruined it.
Yeah, she's like, you can be honest with me. I'm in like the same situation. I'm sure you've noticed Lando is in love with me. It kind of makes it hard to work together, but I try to keep him at bay because I don't feel the same way about him.
And I love how she was like, sometimes I consider maybe, but then, nah.
Kira's like, oh, how would that work?
It works.
And she's like, oh, trust me, it works.
L3, little saucy lady.
Which to me implies that something's happened in the past.
Yeah.
So then we see Woody reminding everyone of the plan, and he's like, don't improvise. You gotta stick to the plan no matter what. Improvising is gonna get us killed, blah, blah, blah. They get to the planet that has all of the coaxium on it, and Qi'ra pulls out one of those gorgeous capes, and she pretends to be a bad guy, which I wrote down her name.
She's looking very Daenerys.
Yeah, she's given Daenerys. She's got Han and Chewie in their handcuffs, and Beckett is dressed like a guard, and she comes over. This took me so long to write down because it was a long title. She said her name is Oksana Florin, Deputy Assistant Administrator to the Vice Admiral of the Federation of Trade Route Allocation and Monetization.
So made up.
Sounds legit to me. I believe her.
They believed her too.
And she offers a trade spice for slaves, and she's like, oh, I brought you a sample of my slaves so you can check them out. And the guards kind of kick them down and inspect them and then nod at the big baddie who, I don't know, did he get a name?
No.
I'm gonna call him Big Baddie. So Big Baddie says something and then L3 translates to say that the slaves are gonna be clipped and tagged. And Han is like, I'm sorry, what are you clipping?
A pervert wrote this movie. An absolute pervert.
It's for the parents.
And we love it. It's for the parents.
And then Qi'ra starts walking away and then she randomly comes back and just punches Han in the gut. And she's like, that's for what you did earlier, you scum. What was that for?
She put the dice in his hands from earlier.
Oh.
She's had the dice this whole time.
Okay. I'm like a little dumb, so I'm glad you're here to tell me what things are.
At first, too, when she punched him and she's like, that's for the stunt you pulled earlier. In my head, she was thinking about the kiss.
That's what I thought too.
But then, yeah, the dice were there in his hands for luck because he gave them to her for luck. She kept them all this time.
Got it. So yeah, then they get separated. Han and Chewie go off to be slaves, and Qi'ra and L3 and Beckett go off with Big Baddie. And L3 is translating as they go, and she's like, oh yeah, like Big Baddie has an excruciating conditioning process, but it's very effective. So that's going to be fun for them. And then they go in to negotiate with Big Baddie, but then Beckett, who is dressed up as a guard, gets stopped. And Big Baddie's like, well, you don't need your guard to negotiate, right? And she's like, no, just stay here. Don't cause any trouble. And then they get locked in this room for said negotiations. And then Han and Chewie break free of their captors with some arm-ripping action that does not count for anything.
Arm-ripping action.
Doesn't mean anything if it's not a main guy.
What?
I thought you were talking about Lando getting shot in the arm. I was like, you're being dramatic.
I was talking about Chewie ripping off arms, but I guess that's kind of his move because it's mentioned a few times like Chewie's gonna rip your arms off.
Yeah, he loves to do it. He was inspired.
Yeah.
So was everybody else in movies after that. And then Beckett starts shooting down the people that are in the control room that he's waiting in. And and Qi'ra knocks out Big Baddie, and then she opens the door and Woody's like, well negotiated, which is pretty funny.
And she says that Dryden taught her what she did.
Oh, yeah. She does say that, which comes back.
Terrace Kasi, I think, was the name of the fighting style.
Oh, yeah, she did say it, but it didn't mean anything to me. Is that a real fighting style?
Probably not, but I like the name of it, so I did write it down.
I always love when fantasy things are inspired by like real martial arts styles and stuff.
It probably is. I know that a lot of at least the Jedi in general, and I think a lot of the fight style in these are inspired by martial arts.
Oh, fun.
I don't know which specific ones, but general.
Maybe somebody can tell us in the comments.
Yeah, maybe somebody else knows though, but I know it definitely is.
Very cool, very cool. So then L3 begins what is arguably the most exciting journey of her life, which is she liberates a droid.
Yeah.
And she connects into the control system to tell Han and Chewie how to get through. And that droid that was freed starts freeing everybody else. And it just has this crazy chain reaction.
The chaos.
And honestly, it's hilarious.
Yeah. I think that this was probably the best part of the film because, like, they're trying to do this thing and then there's just, like, this crazy uprising and we keep cutting to droids, like, stomping on computers, pulling out wires.
The droids were having so much fun. It was honestly very enjoyable.
And L3 is loving it. Yeah, I loved it.
And she's like, I'm so glad we decided to take this job.
Yeah, I found my true calling.
Yeah. And then even the slaves start getting freed, like the human or whatever race they are, slaves. Oh, did you see that?
Yeah, what was that?
Was it an alien?
Was it a fairy? Guys, an alien just entered Kelly's room.
Anyway, it is me, human Kelli. Let us continue the podcast.
There was like a light beam that just shot across the back of your camera.
I have the curtains drawn and I have like little things covering the area so that no lights get in.
Yeah,
that was weird.
I don't know what that was, but it was crazy.
Well, if I start acting weird, you know why.
If there's something behind you, I'll let you know.
Please do not do. I'm going to get scared.
I won't.
You know I can't handle that. Anyway, so all of these slaves start getting freed and yeah, uprising is going on. And actually, we see Chewie and Han as they're running through. Chewie stops and notices that there are some Wookiees getting their butts handed to them.
His tribe.
Yeah, and he wants to go over there and help them out. And Han is like, no, we got to stick to the plan, remember? Which, Han, dude, come on.
It's his family.
He literally said that was his number one goal, was to find his family again. Honestly, I lost so much respect for Han in that moment for trying to convince him otherwise. I feel like he should have immediately just been like, yeah, dude, go.
But I think it was such a brief moment that Han was trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, the respect was earned back very shortly after because then he hands him a weapon and he's like, you'll probably need this, catch you around or something like that.
Because at that point, he didn't think he was going to see him again.
And I also wanted to note at this point, he is wearing a guard outfit because he, I guess, had gotten into one and he's running down the hallway amidst this rebellion and mutiny, uprising, all this stuff, right? Why? This is something that bothers me in movies. Am I the only one? When somebody dresses up as the bad guy, but they're a good guy, nobody attacks or tries to kill them whatsoever. Like nobody. He's just a guard running through. People are knocking down the guards and killing them and stuff. And he's just like,
Yeah, but those guards are coming for them.
Yeah, true.
And he's not. He's just doing his own thing, so they're not going to notice him.
Yeah, but if I was a slave doing an uprising and I saw somebody running, I would just think he's a coward running away and I'd be like, that's the guy I want to kill.
I suppose so, but these slaves are dealing with the ones that are like directly coming for them.
True, but I would sneak away and be like, I'm going to kill that guy.
Okay, Kelli, let me know how that goes.
He doesn't deserve to live. Oh no, the alien's starting to affect me already.
Yeah, seriously.
So then Han gets to the vault with the unrefined coaxium and he gets this giant container and he has to drag it onto, I don't know, like a little dolly cart.
Yeah.
And then Beckett's like, all right, you're good. Just 11 more. And Han's like, I have to do 12 of these? They're so heavy.
He starts like ripping off his uniform.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Lando's on the ship and he is narrating his book that he's writing a book.
Writing in his diary.
Yeah. And he hears a commotion and he looks out and he's like, you guys are not going to believe what I'm seeing right now. And L3 is like, oh, is it a mass breakout? And he's like, what have you done? And she's like, I found my purpose. Yes. This is so much fun.
Oh, L3.
That was a great moment. So then Han is carting out the coaxium. There's guards approaching and he's like, I don't have any extra hands. What do I do? And Beckett's like, improvise. And Han is like, you told me not to improvise. But then guess who pops up to help him?
His earlier improvisation when he let Chewie go. Now Chewie returns to help him improvise out of this situation.
Yeah, and he beats the baddies and then he helps cart them along. And there's other Wookiees helping too. And this was my favorite part when Han introduced himself to the other Wookiee and he's like, oh, I'm Chewie's friend Han.
And then the other Wookiee gives him a little pat on the head.
And he's like, oh, okay, thanks. Great moment, especially because Wookiees are the ones that are like fuzzy and like you want to pet them.
Yeah.
And they're like, let me pet this little human. Great moment. Love the Wookiees. Yeah. They're my favorite.
Me too.
So then Lando is out. He's trying to shoot everyone down to try to get everybody to the ship. And Han joins him. The Wookiees start loading the ship. L3 is just having the time of her droid life cheering for this rebellion. Qi'ra gets onto the ship and they all, like at this point, they're right there. So they all gotta go. And Lando looks off into the distance and sees L3 getting shot down and he like starts screaming and running for her. And at this point I was like, wait, is he in love with her?
I think he might be.
He seems like he is.
The way that Lando ran to her, I wrote Lando runs for L3 in sexy way. And I don't remember what Lando did that was sexy.
I didn't think it was particularly sexy.
Oh, you know what he did? He like slid into her arms.
I would have described it as like in a desperate fashion.
Yeah, I thought it was sexy, but desperate also I think works.
Yeah. You think everyone's sexy all the time, so.
Yeah. I also think that Lando is definitely a pan king. Agree or disagree?
As evidenced by the first section of this movie when he's like, come on, baby.
Come on, baby. And now I think he is in love with L3 and we've seen him flirt with women.
And men.
And men, yeah.
And droids.
And droids.
And everything in between.
That's a pan if I've ever seen one.
He loves those pans. No, and I will say again, Childish Gambino does an incredible job portraying Lando.
Oh, so good.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Would you say that Lando is daddy status in this movie?
Well, so far besides SpongeBob, obviously, all of our daddies were actual dads.
Yeah.
Like daddy dads. But as Pedro Pascal, who plays the Mandalorian in a series that you don't like, he had once said in an interview that daddy is a state of mind. And I think that Lando is in that state of mind.
He's given daddy. Can I ask? I don't even know what it means. What is a zaddy? Because I feel like that's like a daddy that's not old. Am I wrong?
I forget what zaddy stands for.
Should we look this up? This is an important segment.
It really
of
is.
Today's episode.
Zaddy versus daddy.
Because I feel like in the later movies with the other actor, I feel like that guy's definitely daddy. But I don't know. Like Childish Gambino is so young. Isn't he like our age? Let me see how old he is.
Okay, so I would say that Childish Gambino as Lando is a zaddy. The difference is a daddy is an attractive older man. And so a zaddy is a man with charisma who's attractive and also fashionable.
Oh my gosh. Lando is zaddy.
Yeah.
Also, I just looked it up just for our reference and he is 39. So
he's like our age.
So we can't call him daddy.
Yeah, he might be too young to be a daddy.
But he's definitely a zaddy.
He's on his way to be a daddy.
And if you skipped this portion of the episode, now we're back to the actual content.
So let us know in the comments, is Childish Gambino as Lando a zaddy? We vote yes.
Yeah, I'll give him a yes. But definitely daddy later.
Daddy later, even though he has no kids.
Yeah, but he's given daddy.
It's a state of mind, yeah.
So anyway, he does try to pick up L3 and like pull her away, but her body kind of detaches. He's freaking out. And we talked about this previously, I think in the original trilogy. I thought droids couldn't die.
I thought so too, but I guess maybe in some ways they can die. I don't know. Well, she dies, kind of, so.
Yeah, kind of. And I don't know why her like spirit isn't sassy in the ship in the future, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But Chewie does run up and he grabs Lando, who's holding L3, and they start pulling. Oh, I didn't mention Lando got shot in the arm.
We did talk about that earlier, though.
Yeah, we talked about it out of order, but this is the moment that he gets shot in the arm. And also, Chewie says goodbye to his tribe.
And the way that he says goodbye, the way that they like put their foreheads together.
So I like wanted to cry in that moment.
I started getting a little teary-eyed when he first sees them because when Chewie is sad, the sounds that he makes are heartbreaking.
Devastating.
So I got sad again when he did leave his family.
And you know what I love? I feel like there's so many stories where characters who are super old just like do not care as much because they've lived through so many lifetimes and blah, blah, blah. And I love that Chewie still, you know, feels a very strong range of emotions, especially for the people he loves.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking
agree.
more like vampires, but like, you know, in vampire stories where they're just like, he's dead.
I don't even care, but they live
Yeah.
forever, so that's different.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I don't know. How long is the lifespan of a Wookiee?
I don't know. At least over 200 years, though.
I would say he was like middle-aged in the episodes 4, 5, 6 where he's with Han.
400 years is
Wow,
a
so I'm
normal
so right.
lifespan. Yeah,
He's
so,
literally
yeah,
middle-aged.
Literally middle-aged.
Okay. Wow, I am so good at this. I know a lot about Wookiees. I'm writing a fan fiction about them. So
Amazing.
So then they all get onto the ship, and Han has to pilot it because Lando is injured, and he's also kind of having a moment with L3, which is kind of intense.
With L3.
And Han is kind of hyped about it because he's like, oh yeah, I can do it. That's fine.
He's like smiling and stuff when all this terrible stuff is happening to Lando and
Yeah.
L3. But you know what?
He does not care.
No, he does not care.
He's like, all right, you go deal with the dying droid. I'm going to go pilot this ship. Seems like fun. So yeah, Lando's trying to comfort L3 as she dies. And it's actually like, this is the kind of death that like scares me because she's like, what's going on? What's going on? Lando. Like
Yeah.
it kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah, she was freaking out.
Yeah, but he's holding her and then she does die, question mark?
Yeah, I guess she does.
And then Qi'ra comes into the cockpit with Chewie, and Han's like, I could use a co-pilot. And then she sits down in the co-pilot chair, which was like, well, not a fan.
Not for long.
Yeah. Well, there is an Imperial ship that is blocking their way in order for them to do this Kessel Run.
Mhm.
The Kessel Run means nothing to me. I'm sorry.
It's like a section from Kessel that's dangerous.
And even all the bragging that he does about the Kessel Run, he didn't do that just based on his own merit. He did it because he had extra steroid juice in his fuel.
Whatever. Details,
Oh,
Kelly.
dumb.
Details. He still did it.
But yeah, Han is like, oh, don't worry. They're not going to waste a TIE fighter on this like rinky-dink freighter. Don't worry about the Imperials. Oh, and he also is like, I used to be one of them, so I know them pretty well, which I thought was great. But no, it sends out 4 of them.
Yeah.
And then Lando says that just mathematically, it is not possible to get the coaxium where it needs to go before it reaches this temperature. So they're pretty much going to die because you literally cannot make the Kessel Run in less than 20 parsecs.
Oh, can you not?
And Han is like, oh, no, it's fine. I can do it. I got a shortcut. Don't worry about it.
And you know, at this moment, he said what has to be your favorite line in any movie. Because if the line, I've got a bad feeling about this, is your least favorite line, then by default, the line, I've got a really good feeling about this, has to be your favorite line. And Han did say that here.
I actually really like when people say I've got a good feeling about this.
So I was right.
Yeah, you're right. It makes me like hopeful. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, me too.
And it's such like a Han personality trait of him being like, we're gonna just do this thing and it's gonna be fine. Like in another film, he said he never asks if he can do things until after he's done them.
Yeah.
And this really shows that personality trait.
Again, this actor, great job embodying Han Solo. I think he did amazing.
Me too. I'd like to see him again.
I actually probably would have enjoyed a trilogy of this.
Yeah.
That would have been fun for me.
It was just a lot of criticism on this film, but I agree. I think that they should have done 3 films.
Yeah, I mean, I already know the criticism that it's just, why is Han Solo not played by Harrison Ford? And why is Emilia Clarke the love interest instead of Princess Leia, who he hasn't met yet?
Yeah, exactly.
So dumb. But yeah, so Beckett is actually in that little, like, is it called a gunner?
I guess so.
Yeah, so he's shooting at TIE fighters. And this, actually, I know I keep saying this, but this was my favorite moment of the film because Han is like, are they still on us? And Beckett's like rationaled on a calic. And Han is like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And he's like, yeah, like Gingelson's pelt. And Han is like, can you just say yes or no? Are they on us? Yes, no. And Beckett's like, yes, they're still on us.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Yeah, that was so funny. I didn't write down what the analogies were because I had a feeling you were going to write them down.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I had a really good feeling about this, that you were going to write them down.
Brief aside, when I briefly lived in Atlanta, Georgia, I heard so many things like that. And I was just like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
It was making me think of Hannah Montana because I feel like she used to do that all the time too.
I will never forget this one that I heard from a friend when I was was living in Georgia because he said something like, I'm like a possum eating pea seeds right now. And I was like, is that good?
Is that good or bad?
What does that mean? What's a pea seed?
So you were Han in this moment.
Yeah. So I was like, can you just say yes or no? What does that mean? But I'll never forget that one. But yeah, that happened to me constantly. So when this moment happened in the film, I was like, wow, this is literally like a person from the Northeast moving to the South.
Yes.
Southerners do love their little analogies.
Oh, we also missed the section where they started talking about how they're going to put L3's navigation into the Falcon.
Yeah. And then Han also, again, didn't write down the details. They need to do something with a deflector. I'm not really sure.
I don't know. But Qi'ra couldn't do it.
Yeah. Kira's like, yes, we definitely do need to do that. And then Chewie's like, ugh. And then he just starts pressing a bunch of buttons. And Han is like, since when do you know how to fly? And the temptation for me to say, since this scene, apparently, like that Mary-Kate and Ashley movie.
Wait, which one?
Oh, gosh. What was the one where Our Lips Are Sealed? Where they're like in witness protection. And they're like, since when do you know how to drive? And he's like, since this scene, apparently. And they're like, since when does she know how to surf? And they're like, since this scene, apparently.
You know, I used to be in their fan club.
Really?
I used to get boxes of merch and stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous of you.
Yeah. Mary-Kate and Ashley.
I was a huge Mary-Kate and Ashley fan. I watched all of their movies.
Same.
They actually had books that I read.
Yep. I read the books too.
That's how I learned how to spell vacuum.
Big moment for you.
I don't remember the context, but somebody got a vacuum and she was excited and she started spelling it. It was a whole thing.
VACCUUM.
Wrong.
What? That's right.
There's not 2 C's in vacuum.
There are 2 C's in vacuum. Oh my gosh.
You should probably read that Mary-Kate and Ashley book.
Oh God, I should probably read that Mary-Kate and Ashley book. Yeah, you're so
Was this
right.
a Mandela effect situation?
It might be.
Were you from a dimension where they spelled vacuum with 2 C's?
Well, honestly, I'm going to leave this search up because I need a new vacuum. So now I have a search up on my Google. Thank you, Kelli.
Oh, I've got a great recommendation for you. I'm a big vacuum fan.
I keep actually meaning to ask you because I know that you have a good recommendation for a vacuum. But anyway, back to the podcast.
I hate that everybody just knows that about me, that I'm really into
Kelli
vacuuming.
really loves vacuums.
I'm a big vacuum fan.
My vacuum is terrible. I need a better vacuum. So we'll talk later. We'll talk.
So yeah, anyway, so Han is like, since when do you know how to fly? And Chewie says, since this scene, apparently. Just kidding. He doesn't say that.
He says, I'm 190 years old, dude. I've learned.
Yeah, and Han is like, wow, you're 190. You look great for your age.
Incredible.
Which is incredible.
And Kelli, I have to ask you, Chewie sits down and it's the first time that we see young Han, young Chewie sitting in the cockpit.
I know, I heard it.
You heard it. Okay, good. Good. The music.
And it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
and then it actually happened again at the end when they got together and were co-pilots together. And Kira's like, I'm going to go help Lando. And she sees that there's like a fire and she starts putting it out with Lando's custom designer cape. So rude.
Lando's not happy about it.
Yeah. And then their cannon gets shot off, but Beckett's fine. Don't worry. Well, I don't know. Maybe worried.
He said his thumbs really hurt though.
Oh, yeah. His thumbs do hurt.
He's like, ow, it hurt my thumbs.
But Han has a plan to fight off the last TIE fighter. And then we get another hilarious moment because he's like, I'm going to use a trick for my friend. He was the best street racer in Corellia before he died, actually attempting this specific trick. He did not succeed. He died doing this, but we're going to succeed. It's fine.
We're going to do it. It's going to be great.
And then meanwhile, the canisters are heating up with the coaxium, and Qi'ra does in fact take L3's processor and puts her in the ship. And L3 does not get to share her sassiness with us anymore, which I'm sad about.
No, took away all her personality, but we got her nav system.
Yeah, she's constructing a map.
Droid rights.
And, oh, did you have more to say about droid rights?
No, just, that's it. Droid rights. Think about it.
Agree. Anywho, they are approaching the maw, but there's a giant octopus monster in the way.
The big eyeball did kind of make me scream a little bit.
Really? You think everything's a jump scare?
Yeah, even when it's not. I get jumped a lot.
Like, they'll just cut to, like, the different character and you'll be like, wow!
Kelli, there's something behind you.
Don't do that to
Darn
me.
it! I thought it was going to work.
I will cry.
I can play tricks. That's one thing I'm not good at.
Thank goodness, because I don't know if I could handle being your friend if you were a trickster.
No, I'm not a
Although
trickster.
it would be in line with your personality, but I'm just so grateful that you're not good at tricks.
No, I don't like them.
Hate 'em.
This whole time I was thinking about tricking you. I thought that was a good moment to do it. It failed. I will not do it again. I promise.
Thank goodness. Anywho, so Han does this little sneaky maneuver where he launches the escape escape pod, and then the octopus monster goes after it, and it starts getting sucked up by the maw. But guess what? So are they. So that's not fun. Oh, the maw is a gravity well. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's what it is.
So they're at full speed, but it's not enough to get out of the gravity.
Yeah, but they have a great plan, which is to use the coaxium. They're gonna inject like a little drop of it just to give them a boost. And Beckett's setting it up. It's pretty tense because they only have like a few seconds, and Han is like, I'm gonna count you down. And then they do it, they count down, he injects it, and then nothing happens, and they start getting sucked up by the maw. And it's like, oh no. And everyone's basically just like, yeah, I guess we're gonna die now. And then it does work.
See, that's when I'd start making out with someone, right in that moment.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone was just kind of like looking at each other like, we're good?
Like who should we make out with?
Yeah.
That's what I would be thinking.
It was the
like
decision.
At the end of Rogue One. Yeah.
And Lando's just looking wildly between everyone because he cannot decide.
Exactly.
So then they do escape, and it's great. We actually get like a little repeat of what happened in the beginning of the movie with Han and Qi'ra, where they're like trying to fly through like a very narrow alleyway situation, but this time it does work.
And I liked his line. He was like, "Do you remember that thing I did?" And she's like, "Yeah, it didn't work." And he's like, "Well, watch this time.
It's gonna work this time." Yeah.
Yes.
And then they get to the planet where they need to unload the coaxium, which they do. Nobody dies. Yay. And they're setting it up with, I don't know, the locals who are just coaxium experts, I guess.
This was such a fun moment in the film because it was so calm and it felt like, maybe everything's going to be okay for a little while.
It was weird because it almost felt like it was like a false ending to the movie.
Yeah.
And Han is also bragging that he did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, and Chewie disputes that. And he's like, well, yeah, it's 12 if you round down.
So it's probably like 12.9 or something.
And then he goes over to Lando and he's like, she's a hell of a ship. And then Lando turns to him and he's like, I hate you, which is amazing. And he's like, I'm going to go back to my ship. I'm going to wait for my share of the treasure. And then I never want to see you ever again. And then he walks away, and then Qi'ra is in some tent cleaning off, and Han goes to her and he's like, where's your boss? And she's like, he's coming, and then you'll get paid, and then you can buy your ship. And he's like, well, what's going to happen with us? And she's like, it can't happen. And Han's like, is it because you're with Dryden? And she's like, I'm not with him, I owe him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he asked her how long it's going to take to pay off her debt, which at this point, my theory was that he was going to use the money he gets from the coaxium to buy her freedom.
Yeah, but I mean, in this situation, I feel like it's not about paying off your debt. Like when you're in the life, you're in the life. Like she's in it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no way to get her out of it.
Yeah. And she actually says an interesting line, which is that we all serve someone, even Dryden, which is a little hint of what's to come. And she says it's not smart to make him an enemy. And I don't know, there's like they have like a little moment back and forth. And he's like, I'm an outlaw. And she's like, I might be the only person in the galaxy who knows who you really are. You're the good guy.
Which he is.
And he's like, no, I'm not a good guy. I'm a bad guy.
I'm a bad boy.
I'm a bad boy. And I need to be punished. And then Beckett interrupts them again because they need to collect the coaxium once it's refined. And then they go through the village. And let me tell you, those village people, they're looking a little destitute. Like everything's like run down and ripped.
And they're all pretty old.
And they're all old. And they go up to this bar, and Beckett's getting ignored even though he wants a drink. And he turns around, and guess who's behind them?
Enfys Nest.
AKA the pirates. So now it turns into my third least favorite kind of film, which is a Western.
Would you call this a West? I guess they're having a little standoff.
Just for like a second. They have the standoff, yeah. And then Han is like, you see that ship over there? Like, we've got hired guns waiting for my signal. And as soon as I make the signal, they're going to come out and swarm you. And then Lando, for some reason, decides to fly off at this moment because he is so done.
My assumption has to be that Lando saw Enfys and was just like, oh, it's a lost cause. Bye.
That's what I figured. And he was just like, honestly, I'm out. I lost the droid that I was hooking up with, and I just don't want to be a part of this anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to playing cards and swindling.
Yeah. And then Beckett is like, you can go ahead and kill us because the Crimson Dawn is coming and they're going to kill you. And Qi'ra is like, well, maybe we can like have a compromise where there's not as much killing. That would be good for me. I don't really want to die.
Yeah.
And then Beckett has his little speech where he's like, they're marauders. They only know killing. And then Enfys, I guess, is that the main person?
I was calling her Enfys. I wasn't sure if Enfys Nest was the crew or if she was Enfys.
Yeah.
So I just called her Enfys.
Unclear. But yeah, she takes off her helmet and it's a girl. And I was like, am I supposed to know who that is?
No, you're not. But this is my other eye roll moment where it's like, oh, it's a young girl. Well, in that case, she must not be a bad guy.
Yeah. Or she must not be dangerous. Like, what does taking off your helmet do? Like,
to show that she is a young girl. Literally, that's it.
Yeah.
To show she is a young girl, so she must not be bad.
yeah. Like, I feel like I still would have been like, all right, do we shoot her now? Or like, what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely humanizes her, but I think that if she took her mask off and she was like some old dude, it wouldn't have had like the same effect.
Yeah, for sure. And then she goes and gets a drink, and then she tells them this story about these mercenaries that keep on stealing resources from people. And then the people screamed back with one voice, and then the mercenaries cut out every single one of their tongues. And she was like, those mercenaries? Albert Einstein. Just kidding. It's the Crimson Dawn.
What did you say?
Albert Einstein. Any Reddit fans out there?
If you got that reference, please let us know, because I did not. But let's continue.
Clearly not a Redditor.
No, I'm not.
But yeah, so she's like, yeah, the Crimson Dawn is evil. And Beckett's like, says you. And I'm like, wait, is this not already established that they're evil?
Yeah, of course they're evil.
Like, why is everybody surprised? And they're like, wait, we can't give the coaxium to them because they're evil?
oh my God, they're bad people?
That's shocking. You're telling me the guy that brands women and makes them slaves and then does a little Stockholm Syndrome situation with them is a bad guy?
I don't know. He sounds redeemable to me.
He seems so nice, though.
Because the way that, you know, when his people dies, the way that he caresses the survivors and says, oh, I'm so sorry for you.
I will say that confuses me a little because he does seem very empathetic.
Yeah, it's a tactic. It is a tactic to put their guard down.
And I fell for the tactic.
Yeah, you fell for the tactic. Good job.
And also Qi'ra has like the little brand on her hand and she hides it while they're talking about it. And then Enfys says that she wants to use the coaxium to fight back, which sounds like the stirrings of a rebellion.
Ah, a little bit.
And then Han, of course, secretly being a good guy, wants to join her. And he says he has the beginning of a plan to get their money and get Dryden off their back at the same time. And Beckett is like, no, that's not a good idea. And he's like, oh, and I'm guessing we'll also happen to save your girlfriend too. And he's just, yeah, not having it. And he's like, unlike us, Dryden actually does travel with hired guns, so we're gonna just die. So he tells Beckett the plan, but then Beckett is like, this isn't a good plan, I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh, and also there's like a quick moment where Enfys and Qi'ra are standing together and Enfys is like, what are they saying? And Kira's like, he's gonna try to help you.
Because he's a good guy.
Because he's secretly a good guy. But yeah, and then Han is like, I thought that you don't like running. And Beckett's like, yeah, well, I like it better than dying, so I'm out. He waves goodbye to Enfys, which again, not a fan of that. Like, just because she's some random girl and she's like, no, I'm actually a good guy. You guys have been killing each other. She killed all of his friends and his lover.
Well, she didn't technically kill the lover. That was...
She was responsible.
But she was part of that. Yeah, exactly.
I would never be waving goodbye to the person
See
who's the
ya,
reason that my partner died.
buddy.
Not gonna happen. And then he says to Han, if he makes it out alive, find him on Tatooine because someone's putting together a crew. And he's like, that's gonna be my last score before I finally start to learn that instrument that he keeps on talking about.
Valcord, I remembered this time.
The Valcord, yeah.
Tatooine, heard of that place before.
And then Qi'ra and Chewie and Han get onto the yacht, the Dryden yacht, which is really not a yacht. I don't know why it's called that. Makes me mad.
And the shape of it is so silly. It's so thin.
Yeah, it's like just like a little futuristic ship that's not yacht-like at all.
It reminded me of like a futuristic love disc because I assume that love disc is that skinny.
Yeah, love disc is skinny. I like that. I like you bringing it back to a Pokemon I hate.
Yeah.
And then Qi'ra gives up her weapons at the little like coat check thing. And Han and Chewie are like, oh, we don't have any weapons. And she's like, they're good. And then on the elevator, Han is like, don't worry, we're going to win. And Kira's really sad. And she's like, it's not that kind of game. The point isn't to win. It's to stay in it as long as you can, which is a hint that she is about to betray him.
Yeah.
So they get to Dryden and they tell him that Beckett died saving Han's life, which I thought was actually pretty good.
And then Dryden does the face touching thing.
Yeah, like he's acting so sweet. And he's like, are you okay, Han? Like, I know that must have been hard for you.
Oh my God. Kelli would fall for the bad guy immediately.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he isn't such a bad guy, you know? I fell for it. And then Kira's like, oh yeah, they did well. And Hana's like, yeah, we'd love the opportunity to work for you again. But yeah, I'm going to just take my money and me and Chewie are going to go. And then Dryden is like, well, wait, show me what you brought me. And Hana's like, oh, you want me to open it? And he's like, yeah, I absolutely want you to open it. And then Han opens the canister and he pulls out the vials of coaxium. And Dryden is like, bring me one. And Hana's like, oh, no, you don't want that. It's explosive. It's a bad idea. And he's like, no, bring it over to me. I don't ask for things twice. And then he brings him a vial and Dryden is like, this is magnificent. How did you do it? And Han was like, well, it wasn't easy. And Dryden's like, no, how did you do it? These look exactly like the real coaxium.
Uh-oh.
And Han is like, they are. That's because they're real. And Dryden is like, yeah, no, I would absolutely believe you, except for my associate already told me your plan to steal my money and give the coaxium to Enfys.
Qi'ra, how could you?
Yeah, and Kira's like backing away as if she was a part of the plan. So that's like a little fake out. And Dryden is like, not Qi'ra. Qi'ra is weak or something like that.
He kept saying how he trusts her. And then in this moment he's like, how could you?
Yeah. And he's like, my other associate. And then in walks Beckett.
Gasp.
The man who died saving Han's life, supposedly. And Beckett's like, I'm sorry. And Han is looking so sad. And he's like, why? And Beckett's like, don't look at me like that. I warned you. You shouldn't trust anyone.
Facts.
And then Han is like, it's too late. Enfys already has the coaxium. And Beckett's like, well, yeah, no, we figured that. And then we see the soldiers surrounding Enfys and the crew. And then we go back to Dryden and he's like, help me, Qi'ra. What's the thing that you would do if the person you trusted the most in the world betrayed you? And she's like, I want to know why, if it was a moment of weakness or if it was something else. And then I would ask them to prove their loyalty by sacrificing something they love. And then they look over at Han, which is another fake out moment.
So many fake outs.
And then Beckett's like, yeah, I warned you about her. And Han is like, yeah, but you were wrong about one thing, because I was paying attention. You said people are predictable and you are no exception. And then we see the soldiers open up the canisters and they're empty.
So it's the real coaxium after all.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Although I kept on thinking, like, what if that had gone wrong and Beckett hadn't betrayed them and they just had the real coaxium and they were like, all right, we're going to go.
Yeah. Well, they would have got their money, I guess.
Yeah, but that would have been wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Dryden starts freaking out. We see that the person in the Enfys mask was actually just a decoy, and then the real pirates jump out and they start fighting all the soldiers down there. And then Beckett back on the ship is like, so the real coaxium is, and Han is like, leaving with one of us. And then Beckett shoots Dryden's guards and Dryden's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm thinking and I want to be the only person with a blaster while I'm thinking.
I like that. Yeah, it was good.
Beckett is the true morally gray character that we all need.
Definitely. I agree.
And then he tells Han and Chewie to load up the real coaxium and Dryden's like, WTF, we had a deal. Like, why are you betraying me? And he's like, well, you know, I'm an entrepreneur, which I love. And then he leaves with Chewie and then Han dies for a gun. Dryden dies for this, I don't know, like little hand knives.
Yeah, that gets spicy.
Yeah, they're spicy knives. I was actually wondering, because they shined red, I was wondering if there was maybe a little bit of that kyber crystal in them.
I was thinking potentially, yeah.
So yeah, they have a big old fight. And while they're fighting, Qi'ra secretly grabs this giant sword thing. And then she disarms Han, but not literally.
Yeah, she doesn't actually take his arms. She just takes his blaster.
But then she's like holding the sword above him and she's like, I'm sorry. And Dryden's like, yeah, she's done things that you couldn't understand, but I do because I love her. And Han is like, no, you won't do it. And Kira's like, it's the way I was taught. Find your opponent's weakness and use it. And then she turns around and slashes very weakly at Dryden, which I'm like, why didn't she just kill him in that moment? Like, I guess she couldn't, but like, you ruined the element of surprise.
Yeah, but the fight was cool. And the line she says, and today I'm yours. And then she goes for Dryden. That was cool.
Yeah.
And their fight was cool.
The fight was
when
cool.
she does her little move on the ground, she like falls to the ground like really cool and like has the sword up in the air. I was a fan of that.
Yeah, the fight was cool, but I was like, oh, she should have just turned around and stabbed him.
I know, but the fight we needed.
Yeah.
We had to see how his training got turned against him.
Yeah. And then he dies because she kills him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then she tells Han to go after Beckett and Chewie, and she's like, Chewie needs you and you need Chewie, which I hate when characters are like, this person's going to be important to you. How could you possibly know that?
Yeah, they've
But
only
okay.
known each other a few days, but okay.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, what are you going to do? And she's like, well, someone needs to get the funds for our ship. And there's like all these jewels around. So she's like hinting that she's just going to collect them and follow him. And she's like, go ahead, I'm right behind you. But then he leaves and she immediately starts looking evil, just like her facial expression changes.
And before he leave too, she said something like, the word is smile. Whenever I thought about you out on adventures, I smiled.
I thought that was so dumb. Yeah.
So did I. Yeah.
Glad I'm not the only one. And then she takes Dryden's ring off. But before we get to see what happens with that, we see Chewie carrying the coaxium with Beckett at gunpoint. So he's just kind of leading him to, I don't even know where they're planning on going because they don't have a ship.
Yeah, they're just like going out to the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So then Qi'ra does use the ring to lock down the yacht, and she FaceTimes none other than Darth Maul.
Darth Maul. So I want to give you a little update on Darth Maul, because the last time we saw Darth Maul, he did get cut in half and he died.
But this is a prequel.
Yeah, that was a prequel to this, though.
Oh, wait, you're right.
I need to explain it to you because there's some
I didn't even think about
missing
that.
data here. Yeah. So after The Phantom Menace came out, they then made the animated series, and they decided that Darth Maul was too cool of a villain to kill. So they rewrote history, and they said that his legs got severed, not his midsection. So that is how Darth Maul is still alive.
And how do you feel about that? Because you did mention that you were sad that he died.
I love Darth Maul. I was so happy. I don't care. And he's one of the main villains in the animated series, but I haven't watched those yet. So
I do have Darth Maul socks.
Also learned that, because we were talking about his face, he doesn't do makeup all the time, and we were theorizing that maybe that's just what he looks like. No, the answer is actually he has tattooed his face.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
You should do that. That would be so fun.
I'll think about it. I'll think about thinking about it.
Think about considering it.
Yeah. But anyway, so we see Darth Maul, my buddy.
Yeah, so she FaceTimes him and she's like, oh yeah, Dryden was killed by the thief he hired, which is a lie. And then they like have a little back and forth, which felt like it was setting up for another movie, because he's like, that couldn't have been one person. And she's like, it was. And he's like, well, bring the ship back to me. We're going to be working very closely together in the future.
Yikes.
Big yikes. And then Chewie and Beckett come over this hill, and guess what? There's Han with a gun pointing at them. And Beckett basically predicts what happened on the yacht. And he's like, oh, is Dryden dead? Did Qi'ra kill him? Shocking. Love that. And then he's like, you don't understand. It was never about you. She's a survivor. And then Han is like, you think everyone's like you? And Beckett's like, yeah, everyone but you, because you're not like this at all.
Yeah.
And then he starts to say the sentence. He says, listen, now I'm going to tell you the most important. And then Han shoots him.
Han shot first.
He really shot. He shot way before.
Yep.
And then he immediately runs to Beckett as if he didn't mean to do that, which I thought was a weird choice. And he's like comforting him in death.
Yeah, I just think he wanted him to not be alone. I think he cares for him.
Yeah.
And he understands why he did what he did.
Yeah.
And also, I think that Beckett was going to shoot like a second later, because he was like, let me tell you the most important thing. And he was putting his finger on the trigger. My thought is he was going to, as soon as he finished that sentence, he was going to put his gun up.
Yeah, I knew obviously he kind of just has his own interest in mind, but he's like, yeah, that was a smart move, because I was literally just going to kill you.
Totally going to kill you, dude.
Yeah. And then he has this little sad moment where he's like, I was going to learn to play the Valchord for real. And then he dies. And then Han and Chewie watched the yacht flying off, and Han is looking very betrayed again. He's got a great betrayed face.
Yeah.
I love it.
But I think he also kind of knew.
Yeah, he knew. And Chewie also puts a comforting hand on his shoulder and is like,
Like, at least we have each other.
I love Chewie's hands. I love his little paws.
Furry.
I'm not a furry though, but I do love his little paws. I love him in like an animal way. Like I want to pet him.
Yeah.
You know? I want to take a nap in his lap.
I know.
I've heard there's no better nap place.
I'd love to try it out.
So then we see them go back to the village with the coaxium, and Enfys is telling him, she has like a whole little flowery statement, but basically she's just saying it's the beginning of the rebellion.
Yeah.
And she asks him if he wants to join, and he shakes his head, and she's like, maybe someday you'll think differently. And he says,
foreshadowing.
Don't hold your breath, kid.
Don't hold your breath, kid. When he called her kid, I was like, that's Han Solo.
Yeah, that was very Han of him.
Yeah.
And then she gives him a vial, and then he gives it to Chewie, and he's like, don't lose that. And Chewie's like, dude, obviously.
Obviously. And they all laugh.
Yeah. And then we finish the movie in a very exciting moment. It's the card game, because I kept on wondering, when's going to be the card game where he wins the ship?
Yeah.
But here we are. So they go to this little like gambling den where Lando is doing his gambling thing, and he sees Han and Chewie, and he's like, oh my gosh, you guys are alive. And then Han is like, dude, you ditched us. I'm going to have Chewie rip your arms off. And then Han sees that he has like a little card up his sleeve, literally has a card up his sleeve. And he's like, I was just kidding. Like, let's play a game together. It'll be fun. I'll gamble this coaxium.
And I also like how in this moment, it sort of establishes the rapport between Lando and Han, because the first time we see Lando in episode 5, he kind of does the same thing to Han, where he's like, I can't believe you would show your face here again, and then pretends to go hit him. Han recoils, and then they hug each other. This moment is so similar to that, and I
Very
really
good.
love it. Yeah.
Definitely enjoyed it. Yeah, so then they have their little card game, and Lando is about to cheat, but he does not have his card. And then Han is like, well, I guess if you had this card, you would have won, but I have it. So thank you for the Falcon. Goodbye. And then we leave, and we see him and Chewie flying off, and Han is just trying to convince Chewie to go to Tatooine for a job. And then they both put their hand on like the little hyperspeed thing, and the end.
Whee! End of the movie.
End of the movie and end of the season.
End of the season. So what'd you think?
Well, as we know, I've said it a bunch of times, I am a fully fledged Star Wars.
Yeah.
I love it. Love the world, love the characters, definitely going to be diving into as many things as possible. I love it.
Yay.
Everyone's been telling me for years.
I mean, you are Kelli of the Galaxy Gang.
Yeah.
That is the name of your crew.
It was the war part of Star Wars that was throwing me off.
If it was like Star Lovers, you'd probably watch it.
Star Lovers sounds like my fan fiction of Star Wars. What did you think of it, Leah?
Well, as a first-time watcher, just kidding.
What are the odds that you happen to have tattoos of Star Wars when you've never even seen it before?
I'm actually getting them removed on Tuesday.
Oh, well, I guess you didn't enjoy the season as much as I did.
Yeah, I hated it so much I'm getting my tattoos removed. No. The story with that is they're not well done tattoos. I'm going to get them again somewhere else, but I am actually getting them removed, starting the process on Tuesday. So that'll be a fun time.
So you're not as much of a wart as me.
I do have to say, though, in this watch through, I do feel as though I got more of an appreciation for the prequel trilogy because I hate on that one a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that seeing someone enjoy it made me enjoy it more, you know?
I was seeing it with fresh eyes.
But I feel that about those films is I think every time I see them, I do enjoy them more. And yeah, this time was the exact same thing.
Honestly, I feel like I wouldn't even hate on Anakin and Padme's relationship as much if I like watch the whole trilogy through again, which I absolutely will.
Yeah. I am just excited to watch the animated series because I know that Anakin's character is way more well-rounded and fleshed out in the animated series, and he's more tolerable.
Love that. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I think that time period is my favorite. Episodes 2, 3, and then everything that happens up to 4 is like my favorite. That's my sweet spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Love
well,
that.
Solo falls in that time period, and so does Obi-Wan. How far are you into Obi-Wan Kenobi, by the way?
I've watched a few episodes so far.
So you know the other main character?
You mean Princess Leia? Or
Yeah. That was an exciting little addition, I think.
Yeah, very cute. It's cute to see a little bit more of her backstory of who she was as a princess because she's very sassy.
Yeah, she's like already herself.
And we didn't get to experience her. Like, how did she become this person? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I do like the actor they cast as her, though. I mean, I just don't know enough about kids because I'm like, she seems so tiny to be 10 years old. That's the only thing about it is like, I just thought that she'd be bigger because there was like that one scene of her like running away from the guards through the woods. And I was like, this kid is running so slow. Like they would have caught her in 2 seconds.
You're talking to the wrong person. I have no idea how big a 10-year-old is.
Yeah, I have no idea either, but I just assume that 10-year-olds are bigger.
That actor could be 4. That actor could be 15.
That's literally...
I do not know.
I would have put her at 4 or 5 years old, is what I would have thought.
Wait, actually,
But
no.
I don't know.
I have a family member who's 5, and he definitely is not as articulate as she is.
Okay, but is he like size-wise the same size as her? Maybe she's just a small 10-year-old.
Actually, kind of. Yeah, she might just be like a small little 10-year-old, yeah.
But that was my thought on her. But I do love seeing this little side story of Obi-Wan having met Princess Leia before, because in episode 4, they actually never interact. So it's very plausible that they would have met before.
And she's also like, help me, Obi-Wan.
You're my only hope.
I thought in that moment that she already knew him. Like, that's what I assumed from the story, because I wouldn't randomly call somebody by their first name and be like, hey, help me out.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for joining us for season 2. Now, we did not take a break between season 1 and season 2 because we wanted to have a lot of content for you guys to enjoy, but we are going to take a little break before season 3 because that is the point of seasons.
To have a break in between.
So we'll be back. We're not going to tell you what we're going to watch next.
But we do have some exciting stuff in the works for when we do return. So definitely make sure you're following us on Twitter, on YouTube. Any updates that we have on when we're going to return and how we're going to return will be there. But trust me, we've got a fun thing planned and how we're going to announce the new season. It's going to be really cool. So keep updated on that and enjoy your little break. We're going to enjoy our break too.
Yeah. And don't forget to watch Leah's cute animations on YouTube.
Yes, because they are very, very cute. And I got to get working on the next one.
Yeah.
And if you have any predictions for what you think the next season's going to be.
Ooh, yeah, predict.
To us as well.
There's a lot of things I haven't watched.
We've mentioned so many things that Kelli hasn't seen. And honestly,
and there's a few things that you haven't watched.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a few things I haven't watched also. So maybe the format will change. We don't know yet. Well, we know yet, but we're not.
We know. They don't know.
We know. They don't
They'll
know.
never know. They're not gonna
How
know.
are they going to know?
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you soon. Kelli, there's something behind you.
Don't.
It didn't work again. It didn't work again.
That was so bad. That was so bad.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the It's All Geek to Me podcast, hosted by Leah and Kelli. Make sure to hit subscribe in your favorite podcast player and give us a rating. You can also follow us on Twitter at All Geek Podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday. See you next week.